Hi, in this session I will be discussing the physical inventory process in SAP Warehouse Management. So in this session we will understand the different inventory procedures that are available in Warehouse Management with SAP R3. We will discuss how to make the settings required to execute these procedures. So basically, physical inventory is a process of counting the physical stock available in the storage location or in the warehouse and matching it to the book stocks, that is the stock that we have in the system, that we see in the system. So when your plant is warehouse managed, it is mandatory, or it is a legal requirement, that you do inventory procedure at a warehouse level. That is, you do the inventory count at a bin level. So here in this session we will understand what are the different methods of doing inventory in the warehouse, and how do we do the customization settings to do this kind of inventory, and we will also see one inventory cycle in the system. So there are three major inventory processes that we can see in SAP R3. That is the annual inventory, the continuous inventory, and the cycle counting. Now all these are different ways of doing inventory. Finally we are going to count the stock, but depending on the organization's needs, depending on the size of the warehouse and the type of materials or the quantity of materials or the availability of free time or the way the business is done, the inventory procedures adopted by different organizations would be different. For example, if you choose to do an annual inventory, basically the issue with inventory is that when you are doing an inventory for a specific set of bins or set of storage types, or even in the entire warehouse, you are not supposed to, or you cannot do a normal warehouse operations. Like you cannot put in the material over there. You cannot do a put away in those bins or for that material, or you cannot pick the deliveries for that materials or in those particular bins. This is because this directly hampers the system integrity. So once you have started your inventory procedure, so all the materials and all the storage locations, the storage bins that are in question for that particular inventory are actually virtually frozen. You cannot change anything, you cannot add anything, you cannot remove anything. So in a way, inventory operation or the inventory process means you are not doing normal business. You are doing that inventory for that particular time. So it depends on organization to organization how they would want to do an inventory, whether they can afford to halt the entire warehouse operations to do the inventory, or they would want to go for continuous inventory. So the major difference between an annual inventory and a continuous inventory is that annual inventory would be, as the name suggests, done once in the year. So in case you have a warehouse that is stocking seasonal goods, and you have a time in the year when there would be no business, or there would be no such rush to supply goods or to stock goods, and you have some free time, you can go for an annual inventory wherein you can have dedicated manpower to do the counting of the existing stocks in the warehouse. Continuous inventory, as the name suggests, that you would be doing the inventory continuously. So what you do in this particular inventory process is that you select particular area or a certain number of bins or a storage type that you would want to include for inventory, so that you can do it daily, or you can do it quarterly, or you could do it at a frequency that you want. So in a continuous inventory, you would choose at what frequency you want to do the inventory and complete the entire warehouse over the period of 1 year. So it is, in most of the cases, it is a mandate that you count the material or do the inventory for each and every bin at least once in a fiscal year. So it depends on how the organization would want to do it. In continuous inventory, we have some variations also that we could include to do the inventory. That is the inventory on first put away and inventory on zero stock check on inventory removal. We will see that in just a few slides. Then we have something called the cycle count. This is a different way of inventory. In cycle count, we typically mark the goods as with the ABC indicator, A being the most valuable and high value material, and D meaning the least value and least value material. So this indicator is set up for each material in the plant storage location data, general data 1, and based on this particular ABCD indicator, the system would propose this material for the cycle count when you are initiating the inventory. So A would be counted a number of times in a year, and maybe D is counted only once in a year. Depends on how you set up the process. So as I was discussing, the annual inventory is all the materials in the warehouse are counted once in a year in the same inventory count. So typically warehouse that are stocking seasonal goods can use this inventory because they have off-season time wherein they can have a lean phase where they are not that busy with the warehousing activities, so they can utilize the manpower to do the inventory counting. We have the continuous inventory, which says particular bins can be selected for counting. So this can be done more and spread out in a year. So this could be done at the frequency that we want. This is location based, so there is no control on what material is being selected for inventory count. So we are simply giving the number of bins that we count, or we give the storage type that we want to count, and we start the inventory process. And then we have the cycle count. Materials are selected for counting by the system based on the ABC indicator. ABC indicators specify the frequency with which a particular material should be counted. We call this ABC indicator, but there is also a D indicator, which is for the least value material. For ABC indicator, we need to maintain the CC, the cycle count, physical inventory indicator in the plant storage location data 1, as you see in the screenshot. So once this is maintained, only then the system can pick up the material based on the counting frequency throughout the year. Next, as I was saying that there are certain variations in continuous inventory methods. We have this inventory on first put away and zero stock check. So inventory on first put away means that whenever there is an empty bin and you are putting in the material for the first time in the bin, during confirmation of the transfer order, the system prompts the user to check whether there is material or the bin is really empty. So this ensures that when the bin is filled, it is filled with the accurate quantity, and that there is no residual material left in the bin, and the bin is really completely empty. Similarly, zero stock check means when the material, the last quant, is removed from the bin. During the confirmation of the transfer order, the system would prompt the user to confirm that the material, that the bin is really empty and there is zero stock in the bin. So this ensures again the integrity of the system and with the physical status of the material or the quant in the bin. So this this is a special process or a variation in the continuous inventory methods, and you can use this depending on the need of the organization. So these are the inventory processes and the variations that are available in SAP in warehouse management. And we can see, and we will see how this is set up in the system, how to configure the inventory for a specific warehouse and specific storage types. and how inventory count is typically done. Inventory count in a warehouse management is different than what we do in the inventory management. Before we go to SPRO and see the config settings and actually do one inventory cycle, let us have a look at the steps that we need to follow for doing inventory counting. So in a warehouse management, there are different T codes than what we have in inventory management. The first step is initiate cycle count. Well, this is for cycle count, but it should be initiate the count using appropriate transaction, and this would create an inventory document. So the appropriate transaction, for example, if we go for cycle count, would be LX26, and if we go for annual inventory, it would be LX15, and for continuous inventory, it will be LX16. So depending on what inventory process you have chosen, we would use the appropriate transaction. But that's about it. I mean, this is the only place that all the inventory procedures would differ. So once an inventory document is created, then the process largely remains the same. So what happens is that once an inventory document is created, this inventory document selects all the bins that we choose for inventory, and then we print the inventory document using transaction LI04. We have an option to assign a user to the inventory document, or even if we don't assign, then we do see the system assigned user in the document. So once the document is assigned to a user, the user is given a printout of the inventory document that is printed in LI04, and then the user would go to the bins based on the printed document and would count the materials and write the count on the piece of paper that is a printout that he has. The count details for each bin are entered manually in the inventory document printout against each bin. Then the completed document is brought back to the computer for entry in the system, and then in the system we do the entry in LI11N. There is a transaction. Once the entry is done in the system, the status for the count for all the bins is verified using transaction LX22. So this gives us whether bins are counted or there's something not counted. If the inventory count is okay, we can proceed further. And if LX22 gives you or shows you some variance which is unacceptable or which leaves you in a doubt whether this counting has been done correctly or not, you can always initiate a recount for that inventory document using transaction LI14. Once the recount, in case you want to go for a recount, that recount is done, the differences, if any, are cleared at WM level using transaction LI20. So even if your inventory, the system inventory and the physical inventory match and there is no difference whatsoever, you have to logically complete the inventory process that you have initiated by a step called clearing the differences at WM level, and you do it by transaction LI20. So after LI20, your inventory document goes in a status cleared, and the bins or the material is released for normal picking, put away, whatever. Till that time, once you have created an inventory document, and till the time you clear it at a WM level, this material is blocked for picking or put away. It is just frozen. And in case you have any differences at a WM level, you find that the stock is less or more, when you clear the differences at the WM level, the difference quantity, whether it is more or whether it is less, would go in storage type 999, and then you would have to clear the differences at an IM level. So this is one important change of doing inventory in a warehouse. So if it were only IM, you would directly clear the differences. But at a WM, there is no accounting posting whatsoever. So you have an additional step. So once you clear the inventory, once you clear the differences at a WM level, and if there are differences, there are physical differences, you have to clear the differences at an IM level using transaction LI21. Once you do this step of clearing the differences at an IM level, only then a material document is created and inventory differences are posted against the relevant movement types. The movement types also for WM level inventory differences are 7 series, 711, 712, 713, 714, these series. So my intention of presenting this step-by-step account of doing how to do an inventory process is because there is a lot of confusion, and basically I would want you to understand why we do an inventory and what is the business perspective of doing an inventory, and why these steps are needed. Because as a consultant, we would simply execute the transactions without knowing the significance, but we should understand from a business perspective what exactly is the user doing and how this information is utilized and what it means for business for doing inventory, so that we have a very logical approach to inventory process. Because this is one area wherein consultants would not get a chance to do or see the live process in action, because this happens once or depending on the frequency decided with the organization, and plus this blocks the normal warehouse processes. So usually we are not able to we don't come across the inventory process so often, but it is very important because business would depend on us sometimes to consult or to advise which process would be recommended, or what are the steps to come out of a transaction, or why exactly the stock is still blocked. For a if a specific inventory is active, then how to check in the system if that particular material is active for inventory, and so on. So this step-by-step process would give is to explain what are the steps that are needed for executing an inventory process in a warehouse. So let us now see in the system how to configure, and then we do one inventory cycle. So let us understand how do we configure the inventory management part for a warehouse. So I am in SPRO, logistics execution, warehouse management, activities, physical inventory. So basically when you configure a new warehouse, you have to come to this physical inventory node and maintain all these nodes for any kind of inventory that you would do. This is very important because when we are doing the configuration and we typically finish the configuration, we tend to miss this physical inventory because this is the least seen or the last seen activity to be done in configuration. But it is not so. It is very important, and I am emphasizing this because we typically miss out this configuration, and when we start the testing of the warehouse, we typically focus on the inbound processes and the outbound processes, and we focus on the physical inventory last, or we don't even check it. And when someone checks it, when the client checks it, he finds that there is no configuration maintained for this. So this should not happen. So always make it a point that the physical inventory configuration is in your to-do list when you do the warehouse. So let's start with define default values. The default values are maintained by the system. I mean, they come up directly when you copy 001 storage warehouse. You need to check whether all the storage types that you have included in your config have come here or not. Now, one important thing that you should note here is that if you have created a new storage type, which is something new then that you have copied from 001, it would not come here automatically. You would have to maintain an entry over here. So for example, if your warehouse, I will go to my warehouse. I can see 001 to 007. Now if I have created a 015, maybe I'll just check. Yeah, you can see. So if you have created any other storage type than this, then it does not automatically come over here. You need to create an entry by copying and then maintaining the storage type. That is one thing. And secondly, keep these checks as is. Keep this entry A as is. Okay, don't change anything that is given by standard SAP. This is something also we keep as standard SAP, but this means that the allowed deviation, allowed differences in percentage. So this 5 means 50% of deviation is allowed and 20% of deviation is allowed. So deviation is the deviation from the actual book value. If you are having a deviation of more than 50%, then in this case, if you are having a deviation more than 20%, then the system would give you a warning. So this depends on the business, how they want to go for it. Typically, this is 20%, but I would still recommend that you check with your individual businesses how they would want to have this. I mean, we need to make this point very clear to the business what this means and what are the implications when you are doing the inventory count with the system. Sometimes the organization may feel that we want to note the differences if they are even more than 1%, or we don't even want to allow differences. So accordingly you would maintain it over here. So for S001, I already have 7. I would want to show you one of these doing an inventory. And since ours is a warehouse that is copied from 001, we have many storage types come over here, but it may not be the case for the normal warehouse that you design, or most of the times it would be like a high rack storage, a shelf storage, or any warehouse that storage type that you design, and there could be many storage types as per the spatial arrangement. But at this time, for us to see how to do an inventory count, we have this sufficient, so I will not create any additional entries. So this is important. And say for example, if the design of the warehouse changes midway, then and you create another storage type, then you have to come here and create that storage type entry, because that doesn't come here automatically. So this is a point to note. Then we have defined types for storage type. Here we actually define what kind of inventory process you would want to follow. So I have these storage types, and we have ST as annual inventory and PZ as the continuous inventory. So for a particular storage type, you can have either annual or continuous. You cannot have both. So once you decide for your warehouse the type of inventory process that you would want to follow, then you need to come here and configure it that way. So ST is annual and PZ is continuous inventory. Also note that we do not do inventory in the interim storage types, but I mean, it has just come up over here, but typically we do not do inventories in interim storage types, because whenever we are activating a document, if we want to do an inventory process, we would close all the midway transactions, close all the transfer orders or the transfer requests that are still active. This means that nothing lies in the interim storage type. So standard practice would be to remove the interim storage types. We do not allow inventory in interim storage type. That is one thing. And secondly, this is the variation of the continuous inventory. That is the continuous inventory upon stock placement and continuous inventory upon stock removal. So as we discussed during the presentation, that this means that whenever you are placing in the first quant material for the first time in the bin, that during the transfer order confirmation, the system would prompt the user to confirm and check whether the bin is there. I mean, if there is anything in the bin, and he is placing the material if the first time in the bin. Similarly, when you are removing the stock and that is the last quant that is in the bin, the system would prompt to confirm whether this is the last quant in the bin. So this is a variation of continuous inventory. We have this cycle count, which we can set if we want to. One thing to note is that we can set the cycle count along with PZ or ST if we want. So typically in any warehouse we would follow PZ or ST for all the storage types at the same time, and if we want, we can also execute or also configure the cycle count if the business says we would want to go for a cycle count during the year, and then finally we would want to go for annual inventory also. So it completely depends, but these are the functionalities that are available. We can use the way they have been provided in SAP. And zero stock check, as we have seen during the configuration of the storage type master data, it allows you to, or it would give you a warning when you are removing the last quant from the particular bin. So let us now see what next we have to do. I'll just save this. I have just partially done the config and not everything, just partially. Define differences and document limits. We keep the standard movement types and the document items that are preset by SAP as is. We do not change anything over here. So I have we have to come and configure, of course, and then keep them as defined for 001 warehouse. Clear differences. This section needs to be kept as is, as preset by SAP for all the warehouses, unless you have a very specific customized need, and do not allow clearing in storage types. In this particular node, we actually prohibit posting of differences in particular storage types. So typically in a warehouse, the differences are posted in 999. So we need to allow the difference posting in 999, and we can restrict all other storage types from allowing to post the differences. So only in 999 there can be differences. Differences could be posted. Rest all the storage types, no differences should be allowed to be posted. So I am just configuring or making this check for all the storage types and only allowing the differences to be posted in 999. I save this. So what this means that whenever you are doing the WM clear differences at WM level in transaction li 20, if there is a difference recorded between the book value and the actual stock, the difference quantity goes to the storage type 999. So this particular setting would allow the difference to go in 999, but for any other particular storage type, it does not allow the difference posting in that particular storage type. So, and it is not allowed in standard SAP also. So difference posting should only be done in 999 storage type. So we come out, and then the most important is number ranges, which we typically tend to forget. So the number ranges over here can be copied from 001 warehouse, or you can define your own number ranges, but it is important that you define the number ranges and also the number intervals for 01 and 02. Once this is done, everything is in place. So this config is pretty much standard and there is not much complexity in doing this, but the point is we need to do this once we have completely designed the warehouse. Now let us try to do one cycle of inventory process.